Now to go back, this, as I said, is something which our culture, which WASP culture in particular, neglects, because we are obsessed with abstract attainments. And this goes back to some curious factors in our history. To introduce this matter, I have to refresh your minds about caste, strangely enough. In ancient Hindu society, there are 4 castes, respectively Brahmins, who are priests, theologians, philosophers, and intellectuals. Kshatriya, who are warriors and rulers, politicians. Vaishya, who are merchants, and Shudra, who are laborers, blue-collar workers. These castes have something peculiar about them in the fact that they are eternal. Let me say perennial. They still exist, even though we don't admit it. There are Kshatriya people around, and they are very different from Brahmins. The typical fraternity American, with his crew cut, uses alcohol, is aggressive, likes football, and so on, he's a Kshatriya type. The professorial, quiet fellow is a Brahmin. The businessman is a Vaishya, and our blue-collar people are Shudras. They're still there. And they are all necessary to each other. They balance each other in a very fascinating way. The Brahmin cannot get on by himself. He needs the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and the Shudra. And likewise, every one of them needs the others. But there was a curious revolution in Europe at the time we call the Reformation, when the Vaishyas got the upper hand of the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. The feudal aristocracy began to lose power in the face of, say, the great merchant bankers of Italy and the burghers of Central Europe. The Brahmins, who were the priests of the Roman Catholic Church, began to lose power because their doctrine was criticized and fell under suspicion. For you must see that the Protestant religion was the creation of the burgher cities of Europe, of places like Geneva, Frankfurt, and one must add London, Edinburgh. And immediately, money values began to dominate Christian theology. For example, the number of holy days was very strictly cut down by all Protestant sects because those were holidays. And the merchants didn't want their apprentices taking all these holidays off and not busying themselves. And so, always connected with the Protestant ethic are the virtues of frugality, saving money, saving up for the future, and in such things are Vaishya ideals running a bit wild. And thus you see our ethic, the common sense ethic, that is to say, the basic conception of the good life as it is held in the United States, is very largely a creation of bourgeois Protestantism. We have a very bad relation to the material present. Because that's one thing that the Vaishya can't maintain by himself, any more than the Brahmin or the Kshatriya or the Shudra could maintain it by himself. We have a whole world based on this. Two things. Save up. There's a good time coming. Put your money aside. Invest it. Secondly, which is somewhat contradictory, happiness consists in the possession of things. A lot of people, when they feel inadequate, bored, unfulfilled, try to get rid of this sensation by going shopping. A lot of people spend all their daytime shopping. That's the thing to do. You go out and shop. There are women galore who go into San Francisco every day just to shop and come back loaded with all kinds of things. But these things are not true material possessions. For at least two reasons. Number one, most of them aren't well made. Number two, you can't use that many things. You can store them, you can put them away, you can show your friends that you've got this and that. But you can't live in 6 houses at once. You can't ride more than 2 horses at a time, unless you're doing some sort of a circus act, you know? You can't drive more than 1 car at a time. So we tend to become absolutely overloaded with possessions and have the greatest difficulty, therefore, in moving ourselves around. Because every time we move, we have to carry all the stuff with us. Let's take the comparison between a Japanese living room and a British, American, or German living room. You see the Japanese living room, you have a table and some cushions and the floor. And you don't have any beds. You sleep in a futon, in a quilt, and that's delightful. You don't, therefore, have to haul beds around. You don't have overstuffed chairs, which stand in most rooms like gun emplacements. You know, these huge things. Vast things that have to be pushed around, very heavy. We, in other words, are absolutely cluttered with enormously heavy objects. And it doesn't redound to our true material comfort, because we are always using our muscles to lug them around. They have to be taken care of. They have to be cleaned. The moths have to be kept out of them. They're a perfect pest. So we don't really understand furniture. Now, I would think furniture and a house and a shelter over you is one of the most important things in life. Shelter is fundamental. But when you see what shelter most people in the United States have provided for themselves, you're aghast. Clapboard boxes, miles and miles and miles of them, that you wouldn't want a dog to live in. Have you ever looked at the furniture in Dagwood's home? The absolutely uninspired junk. It has nothing whatsoever to recommend it. It isn't good design, it isn't fun, it's just nowhere. What's something else of material importance that really, after all, we ought to know something about? Clothes. Well, by and large, we are shockingly clothed, as compared with many other people. Men go around looking like funeral directors in the most uncomfortable survivals of military uniforms. Women wear frocks and dresses and things to cover up amazing systems of pulleys and blocks and tackles. And it's a sleazy, and they have no real joyous color. Occasionally, I mean, we all know exceptions. But I'm talking about the generality of the culture. The clothes don't look as if anybody really enjoyed wearing them. They're worn because one has to be dressed and covered up and decent, and therefore they're worn rather apologetically. Furthermore, they wear out in nothing flat. And to buy good clothes, you have to go outside the country. There are, of course, if you want to dress in a rather traditional way, you go and get British tweeds from the Hebrides. But if you want to dress colorfully and beautifully, you have to go to Mexico and get gorgeous materials, or to India and get silk for saris, or to Java and get batiks for sarongs. And these things will last forever. They're beautifully made by people who had a real enthusiasm about making them. Because in the life of the people who make such things, they don't make a differentiation between working and playing. But in a culture where you work and play is different, you work in order to make money to play. This is insane. Because you spend most of the time working. And then what you carry, if you don't really value the work, I mean, you're lucky if you've got work that you really enjoy doing. But if you don't really value the work, all you get out of it is money. Then you come home with that and you're supposed to play. Well, you're pretty tired to begin with. And we just don't play. That's all there is to it. You might play Saturday or something when there's a day off. But in the evening, very few people actually play. They sit and passively watch television. They got all the money in the world. I mean, compared with Hindus and Africans and so on, we live like princes. But we don't enjoy it.